they made this through
Wait,
Google+.
I just clicked go. We're live now.
Hey.
So stop complaining about your technology.
Stop complaining about Google+? Why? That's like all the fun.
Because we have better things to complain about. Hi, everybody. I'm Russell Glasser, and I've got Jeff D, Jen Peeples, Tracie Harris, and Martin Wagner here.
Yellow.
Hi, everybody.
We're all members of an atheist group that you're probably familiar with if you knew enough to tune in, but we are not representing them today because we all have opinions about the recent election in the United States, and we want to state them freely, and it doesn't reflect any official positions of that organization. So it's good to have everybody back in one place. How are you all doing?
Yeah.
Doing all right.
Yeah, hanging in.
Yes,
Yeah.
kind of starting to simmer down.
Yeah. For context, for people listening in the future,
If there ever will be one.
today is November 12th, 2016. 4 days ago, we had an election in the United States, and Donald Trump was selected as the new president. And why doesn't somebody besides me say some initial thoughts about that so that I can hunt for the video link and and try to let people watch live if they're interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I was going to say, I think part of the I guess sense of shock that we're all feeling is that going into the election, the polls all indicated that Hillary Clinton was comfortably ahead in some key swing states, or some key states that she needed to win to carry the Electoral College. And election night, we all sat there and watched in horror as that turned out to not be true. So, yeah, I'm still kind of reeling from the shock.
right, which it would be not that big a deal, of course, if it weren't for the nature of the candidate who won.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, it's what we are now in for that is the problem, not that, oh gosh, the polls were wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, we've seen this before where the polls were wrong, you know, and we got a surprise.
Mhm.
But in this case, we got a really nasty surprise because we found out that a lot of Americans voted for a guy who's been endorsed by the Klan. And that to me is just one of the most shocking things. You know,
Yeah.
you can say
It's shocking to us, but every single person of color that I see on Twitter, and I've been following this quite a bit, and just reading things that people are saying, and the comments that people are saying. The general gist of this is, yeah, this is shocking to you guys, right? But this is what we, non-white people live with all the time. They're all just kind of their reaction is kind of like, see, you have not believed us for all these years and decades when we have told you just exactly how appallingly and toxically racist this America is as a society, and now it's hitting a lot of you, and we're just like, So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know that a lot of my black and brown skinned friends were telling me ahead of the election, hey, this isn't a done deal, and I mean, I don't think I dismissed their concerns completely, but I kept looking back at the polls and reassuring myself that, there's no way we're not going to vote for this.
I may have dismissed people's concerns. Throughout the election, I had a point that I made to a lot of people, and it cheered up a lot of my friends while the election was going on, which was basically that Republicans are doubling down on this strategy where they just bunker in and say that straight white males are the only people who matter. And I was saying this wouldn't work, that they're getting more in this groove of trying to exclude everybody, and there are enough of those people that you know, the rest of us, you know, atheists is typically othered by many people, women, minorities.
Yeah, you want to throw the
trans
word
people.
Christian in there too, Russell.
Yes, I do want to throw in the word
of,
Christian, although Trump's attitude toward religion has been weird and nebulous, but he's also sucked up to the religious right a lot.
His attitude toward
Yeah.
everything has been weird and nebulous.
Right, he doesn't
the thing
have
we're
any.
reacting to are the positions he took during this campaign.
Yes.
And so, because those are the positions that led to the vote, not the things that he said a long time ago. Obviously, those don't matter to anyone, because if they did, it wouldn't have turned out anything like this.
Or if they do, sometimes people thought it was a positive thing. The fact that he would just, you know,
The pussy grabbing thing, you think there are people
even
who
the
thought that was
pussy grabbing
positive?
thing was sort of a seen as, well, this guy isn't politically correct and he's not afraid to do things that offend people.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's baffling the way that there, whatever it is about, I don't know if it's to do with Trump's just, you know, prior celebrity or just having been in the public eye and people already thinking of him as, well, he's just sort of this, you know, wild ass, and he's, you know, that's part of his nature. But the degree to which he was able to normalize, if there's one true thing he said during the entire run up to this campaign, it was that there was literally probably nothing he could do, short of or even up to including shooting a man dead in the street, that would cause people to, you know, those supporting him to abandon him. You know, it seems like it was just a scant few years ago when okay, I mean, Clinton was impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached over the Monica Lewinsky affair.
Right.
John Edwards,
as far as we ever heard, was consensual, but I mean,
yeah. John Edwards' entire political career hit a brick wall and just ended in a day, as you know, as a result of an affair. You know, here is a 3 times married man who in addition to affairs, comes right out on mic and is caught saying, "Hi, I do sex crimes," and that there was a temporary effect of outrage on that. You know, all these prominent establishment Republicans came out and condemned him. He plunged in the polls for a brief while. And suddenly, but then he was able to rebound from that. Even from that, he was able to rebound. And there was, I think that there was just something about this illusion that he cast about himself for being, well, he's, you know, the anti-establishment candidate, and he's going to get all of the, you know, clear all the deadwood out of Washington, and you know, he's not part. Whatever it is that caused people to convince themselves that he's the guy to bring quote unquote change. His ability to overcome literally anything is quite. I mean, people call Reagan the Teflon president, but you know, this is like, you know, Trump has this Kevlar body armor or whatever. I mean, it's just he seems to be impermeable to pretty much.
He's the Jiffy Lube president.
Yeah. So so that's what was really kind of astonishing.
But there's not just one angle to this, right? I mean, there's also the question of his opponent, and I think a hefty dose of the explanation for this outcome is not so much how much people loved Trump as how much they hated Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Because of lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, you know, the thing is that I think the hatred of Hillary Clinton was way overplayed as well, because if you look at people that have, you know, been involved in Democratic Party politics for decades, Hillary Clinton's a much beloved figure in Democratic Party politics, and I think a lot of us who've watched her career over the years were kind of baffled at sort of the vitriol that was directed at her by progressives, not even by Republicans.
It's like absolute textbook cognitive dissonance. The people
Yes.
who had you heard a bad story about her, it turned out to be 99.9% not true, with a little tiny bit of, oh well, we dug deep enough that we found a thing that's awkward.
Yeah.
And then rather than accepting that no, it's not true, they latch onto the awkward thing and assume that that's just the tip of an iceberg. Then the rest of the iceberg was never discovered.
Yeah, and once that mentality,
you see that over and over and over again, and people are still doing it.
And once that mindset took hold, nothing could dislodge it. And so even right down to the tail end, when you had the Comey revelations that were nothing, right? I mean, literally nothing.
Right.
This last batch of emails was. They weren't from her. They weren't to her. They weren't really about her. It was all part of, and even at the end of it, it's like they came out and said, yep, nope, we're not, we still haven't found any evidence of criminal activity, but boy, we still sure put that seed in your mind of she's just not the person to be trusted, didn't we? That was enough with like demonstrably nothing going on in terms of what they've digging up dirt on her. And over here, Trump is like, colluding with the Russians openly, enemies of the state and freaking, and it's just, and again, no effect, I mean, just, and, and it's just,
and he's just, endorsed, he's endorsed by the Klan, and all these alt-right groups are coming out of the woodwork to talk about how, he's their candidate, and no, red flags are going up over that.
Right. And he's not, and he's not repudiating those endorsements.
No.
Exactly.
So, I mean, because any moron can endorse anybody, right? I'm not going to necessarily hold an endorsement against someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't want to give groups like the Plan the power to destroy someone because of the negative effect of their endorsement. But it's the fact that the reasons for their endorsement were obvious and valid from their perspective. So it wasn't that, and he never rejected them.
It's not so much just that he was endorsed by the Klan, but that people basically brought it to his attention and asked him, what do you think about being endorsed by the Klan? And his response was always really evasive. I mean, if somebody told me that I was endorsed by the Klan, I would say, well, fuck those people.
He does not seem like a person who wants to confront questions about how somebody who likes him might be wrong.
Right. And his reaction is always to something like that. Basically,
everybody loves me. Of course, they endorsed me. I'm great. The narcissism on this guy is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, an argument being put forth is that, well, first off, there's a lot of stupefaction over the fact that, like, evangelicals got behind Trump, who is not exactly the sort of squeaky clean person you like to. Now, of course, to us, this is just sort of like, we've been doing this TV show for nearly 20 years where we talk about what hypocrites evangelicals are. So this is as little surprising to us as the whole racism aspect is surprising to POC. But I think that's probably part of the bulwark of support that on the part of Republicans, establishment Republicans, and evangelicals, probably boils down to the fact that their determination is to get an administration in that is sympathetic to their desires. And Mike Pence is that guy, and so they want someone in there to reverse this trend of increasing tolerance and acceptance and marriage equality and women's rights and things like that. And so ultimately, they don't give a shit about what a complete ass Trump makes of himself or who he is, because they are confident that he wants to be president, but he doesn't want to do the job of president, and that's fine with them because they expect Pence to be just really running things behind the scenes while Trump does his TV appearances and whatever he does.
I'm pretty sure he would want the power of being president. He doesn't want to do the boring stuff about making policy decisions, I would think. When he says build a wall, he just wants somebody to say, yes, sir, we'll go build a wall, which is, I can't imagine that actually happening because you have to like budget for it and there's no way it's actually realistic. And the thing about Mexico paying for it is just the dumbest thing still.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that states like Texas don't actually want to stop undocumented immigrants from coming in because, frankly, this is part of the sort of black market economy that drives a lot of industries in Texas, like, construction. For example, they can hire undocumented immigrants, not pay them, even minimum wage.
Yeah.
And, this is actually kind of a thing that a lot of businessmen in Texas don't want to really stop.
Yeah.
So,
but they can't say that openly,
Right. Yeah, they can't say that openly, but but everybody knows this goes on. It's sort of the wink, wink, nod. Yeah, we understand, but we're going to make some noise about undocumented immigrants, and we're not going to do anything about it.
Tracie, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, you've been very quiet.
Yeah, I'm just kind of listening.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Getting back to what Jen was talking about earlier, because I thought he was such a ridiculous candidate and because the polls showed Clinton consistently up for so long, I told people it was a great thing that Trump had won the nomination for the Republican Party because I genuinely thought there was no way in hell this guy could win. And there were a lot of people that I said that to who were like,
oh, me too.
I can't believe you're so complacent about it, including, I think Jeff for a while was uncomfortable with how chill I was about it. And then he came around to my side, which was maybe a mistake.
I don't remember, and it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't.
You went and voted. I went and voted.
I not only went and voted, but I spent all of Monday and Tuesday hanging out at the Democratic field office downtown in Austin, making calls to swing states, Iowa and then Wisconsin.
So, I suppose there may be people who stayed home and didn't vote because they thought it wasn't necessary.
Right.
But I haven't heard from a single one of those people. Not one.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, when I early voted, and I was probably expecting bigger lines, and I may have stood in line for 20-ish minutes or so. I clearly there's this. It's all of this is getting back to who's to blame. Well, the Democrats have for decades had an amazing talent for snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and
exactly.
There is the message going around now to whatever degree that Clinton was, I think, a fine candidate. Whatever you may say about her, not liking her at a personal level, whatever reasons people might have for that, her level of qualifications. She's more qualified in terms of what she's done in her career to be president, certainly than Bill Clinton was in 1992 when he won. So in terms of those qualifications, this is not a problem. But I think to whatever degree you can cry about levels of butthurt that people feel and then the outrage that gets expressed on social media, there is and to whatever degree Bernie Sanders was realistically presidential. You can, on the one hand, you can look at him, say he's a great guy, wonderful ideas. I think that he has certainly has a future, at least for the rest of his life, as the face of the party's, what should be the party's conscience. But to whatever degree the general, people are going, well, if Bernie had gotten the nomination, he would have won easily. It's like, are you sure about that? Because this has completely been an election that has been about upturning preconceived thoughts and expectations, and the idea that the bulk of America, whether you take in the racism factor behind Trump and the anti-Semitism or what have you, the idea that getting outside progressive circles, the bulk of America would have accepted socialist grandpa in the White House is dubious as well.
Yeah,
But
I don't.
but there
I,
is
I don't.
The numbers.
I don't really
aren't
want to
there.
second guess
Mhm.
whether Bernie Sanders would have been better or helped or hurt the election. Because
I'm just saying there's no way that we can't really. I mean, everything about this election. Remember, right up until 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, all the it was like Clinton at 80 something percent, like that. It all changed within hours, not just within days, within a couple of hours.
Right.
And so I'm just saying that it's or any Monday morning quarterbacking going on about this. I think is probably no more rooted in the way reality may have turned out than what we got. So
yeah, I'm not sure that's accurate though, because I mean polls can only be sort of a best estimate, and Nate Silver, who I was a big fan of because majored in computer science, minored in political science. Data about elections is like right inside my favorite interests. And Nate was saying all along, and I dismissed this to some extent, that what you have to watch out for is systematic mistakes in the way that polling is done. So, and I've also heard from a lot of sources that regardless of what polling shows, most people don't change their minds about candidates most of the time. And so it seems like if Trump had that big a turnout, there were probably mistakes in the way that the information was being collected or interpreted or something.
Well, the thing is, though, Trump didn't have that big a turnout. I mean, Republican turnout was actually slightly down from 2012. What didn't happen was that the Democrats didn't turn out. And I think that if there's any, I guess the most legitimate criticism I've seen in terms of Democratic Party and Clinton campaign strategy, the most legitimate criticism of that I've seen so far is that the campaign focused on Donald Trump's negatives, and people are not motivated to get out and vote against something so much as they are to go out and vote for something. And I look back at
but except I think it's clear that a lot of people were motivated by hatred of Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and this is
a huge negative.
Yeah,
there aren't positives in Trump that could explain all of his giant turnout.
Yeah, and I think that this is. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, but even that didn't drive Republican turnout higher than it was in 2012.
But I think that's what Jen is saying, is that it's not a giant turnout. He didn't get a giant turnout.
Yeah,
but
I think it was actually depressed. I'm talking about what did come.
I wanted to finish the point.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I think if we look back at what happened during the Democratic convention, and you look at that message of the convention, it was all about moving forward together, and it was a very hopeful, very inclusive convention. It was really inspiring, and I was watching some of the coverage, and Nicole Wallace said they just stole the Republicans' message. This is our message, that we love America and America's great, and and you contrast that to the dark character of the Republican National Convention, and I think if they had taken that convention message forward into the general and really hammered that very hopeful, inclusive message, that it would have, I think it would have motivated more Democrats to turn out and vote.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the negatives towards Trump, certainly, I don't think accounts necessarily for the poor Democratic turnout. This is where I am on board with the Sanders camp, which is that part of this seething hatred for Hillary Clinton, I think there probably is something to the complaint that at least during the primary season there was you know, to whatever degree this was actually going on. And there's, I think, probably debate to be had about that. But certainly the appearance of a coronation, what put off a lot of people. The idea that, you know, there was this took hold that, you know, whatever you know, message Sanders had, and it certainly did. I mean, it resonated and to a very high degree, except with people of color, which is interesting. You know, Bernie never really connected, certainly with black voters, especially. But the complaint that there was certainly the appearance of, we don't care, we're coronating. You know, we're crowning Hillary, and then the revelations about, you know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's, you know, her own, I guess, whatever her email said, or, you know, it all comes back to email scandals. But that that took hold, and I think that probably, you know, once election day came, those disenchanted Democrats who had, you know, convinced themselves that Clinton just wasn't likable either, and they were just they were pushing all of it, they were just going to push this through. That probably motivated a lot of them staying home and saying, well, the hell with it, you know.
Well, you know, what's interesting about this particular election is that it was so close that it's really easy to point at almost anything and say, well, that could have made the difference.
Yeah,
right. You look at the popular vote, you know, Clinton got more popular vote, but the margin is very, very slim. Trump got a bunch more electoral votes, but that's because of the way the Electoral College works. And a razor's thin advantage in a state can give this false impression of that much more support. You know, it's interesting to go down the laundry list of all the little reasons why it, you know, all the little factors that may have contributed to this, and probably there's some truth in all of them. But when we're talking about margins this narrow, freaking out about any particular one seems to me, as many people are doing, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who were, you know, the Bernie busters on the one hand, who feel like, boy, if everybody had just come with us, then we would have won. And then everyone else who's saying, boy, if you little sliver of Bernie busters had not departed, we would have won. It just, it seems to me what we're getting out of that is not so much insight as divisiveness.
I think there's a bigger picture here, though. I mean, what you're saying is right. It was so close that no one factor can really take the sole blame. But what is kind of disturbing and needs some more insight is that I didn't think it would be close, like, at all.
Yeah,
I know. And I think the big reason is Trump is very much the extension of this whole not believing in facts, not believing in authority. You know, there are a lot of people who really appreciated his message of the media is not only wrong, they're actually the enemy. Hey, look over there, there's the press pool. Everybody boo and shake their fists at them. Which is scary because the press isn't always right or accurate, but we need people to be reporting on things in as impartial a way as they can. And also, wait just a minute.
Sorry.
Well, and it reminds me of the sorts of people that we deal with on when we talk about atheist stuff, who want to believe that faith in the Bible is just as good, at least, and the same process as finding out stuff through science, that everything is just faith.
Well, I think you made a really good point there, which is that if the Democrats missed a key message in all of their, you know, stronger together, kumbaya, moments and let's build a hopeful, you know, we love America and the future, move forward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What they missed was something that the Trump campaign got, which is this general feeling of powerlessness that so many citizens feel. And again, particularly, and it is usually these white Southern working class voters who are looking at a changing cultural landscape that they don't understand and they don't think they feel part of anymore. They feel like something's being taken away. There's this general sense of powerlessness that Trump was able to play upon. And so that is what you get when that's what we're seeing there when he says, oh, the media is, he's giving them simple enemies and saying, yes, these people are trying to put you down. These are the elites. These are the folks who have all of the, and in the same way that evangelical preachers, any kind of demagogue can put forth that message, they'll respond to it, completely ignoring the fact that the guy who is saying it is himself a wealthy, powerful, influential billionaire who pays no taxes, right? So he should belong to that power elite that's putting those people down just as much as anything else. But no, he is able to kind of focus their rage, and then at that point he's got them, and they'll follow him, right off whatever cliff he wants to lead them.
The big Republican. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that there's something even worse to that sort of white rage theory, and that is that, and for context, I grew up in Alabama, so this very genteel Southern attitude about things that is like the thin veneer over the top of some really ugly racism. I understand that. I grew up with that.
Yeah.
People that will give you the shirt off their back, but don't ask them to let the black folks vote in their county. That is a bridge too far. And these are the people that Trump's language, some of his rhetoric, he was dog whistling these guys, and they were following along. They got it. They heard that. That is their language, and they came to him because he's their candidate.
In the past, I would have called it dog whistling, but I think this was just whistling. I mean, dog whistling is nobody else can hear the secret message. And in this case, he was just saying it out loud, which is different from how it's been.
That's true. Maybe we should rename it Whistling Dixie, because that's basically what they're doing to him.
Yeah, these folks know that they are nice people because they're nice to each other.
Right.
And I want to make a point that's kind of self-critical here of our side. We own the comedians.
Yeah.
All of the jokes on late night TV are on our side at their expense. And I can't help but think that a significant portion of the absolutely red hot hostility coming from Trump supporters, even now, right, in the wake of victory now, you say a single thing,
possibly more
continuing to support our viewpoint, right? And it's like, bam, we hate you to death, shut up, you lost. I don't think that those jokes were wrong. Okay. And I don't think that we should stop. I think we need to understand what side we are. And, we're the witty side, and the witty side is also the intelligent side. And, that is our strength. So we, if we're going to win by being smart.
I mean, we're all atheist activists, and we've been used to being in a position of very little power for a long time. I mean, it's something we do on a regular basis, is acknowledge that religion and a lot of oppressive institutions that go along with religion are very much winning and have been for most of the history of civilization. But we care about reality And, you know, we stand up for that stuff.
Yeah, and the Republicans, you know, their whole message at their convention was that it's what's true isn't important. What people think is what is important, and that worked for them. And we have to figure out a way to get around that.
I don't even know if it's what they think as much as what they feel.
Well, there was an interview with I think it was Newt Gingrich, who, like, when confronted with the facts by somebody from the media, just said, well, you know, there's your facts, but there's the way the people feel about it, and we're going to go with the way people feel about it.
Yeah.
Just flagrantly rejecting the facts. That's that strategy right there.
What do you mean, Tracie?
I mean that these are people who are literally rejecting their own values to vote for Trump. So I don't think they're thinking about this at all. I think this is something where they're voting with their feelings. And I think that nobody should know better than us the danger behind people making decisions about things, how they feel, and throwing their thoughts and values to the side.
Well, and that's a good point, because one of the feelings that they're voting based on is fear. And we know that
yes, it's all fear. Yeah,
making
the whole thing is fear.
Making decisions based on fear.
Right.
It's like that is one of the worst basis for decision making right there. You can't even think straight when you're scared. And that's a big part of this, whistling up these issues for certain demographics is make them afraid,
Yeah, I mean, I saw people like not reasoning at all. I mean, I was asking for things on my thread, and I saw people giving me justifications. Like, one person posted something where part of it was Hillary Clinton didn't release the transcripts of the Wall Street talks, and so we know there's corruption there. And I'm like, Obama for a long time didn't release his birth certificate, and it didn't convince me that he wasn't born, like he wasn't a U.S. citizen, right? And so it's like they're using this weird double standard where when it's somebody they like, they think, what a ridiculous way to think about it. But when it's somebody that they hate, suddenly they're thinking exactly the same way and holding up the same expectations and saying that if I don't have evidence of anything that's in those speeches, it must be bad. And it's like, no, it must be you don't have anything, so you can't make a judgment.
Right, that's where the complete abdication of rational thought here. People made up their minds who they supported, and then whatever double standards they had to apply to justify that intellectually, they did so without caring. So this is why it's this horrible scandal that Hillary has emails that we don't know what they say, and she's not releasing the transcripts of these speeches. But if Donald Trump, it would just be too much trouble for him to release his taxes.
Exactly.
I mean, it's.
And the other thing that got me was all these accusations. Like, I saw the word criminal thrown around a lot, right? And so it's just funny because
that meme took hold.
It did take hold, and
even releasing the information had no effect, because you release the information, and honestly, the more emails you release at once, the better, right? Because that's many more opportunities to read meaning into things, to blow things out of proportion, and that is what we saw every single time.
Well, it's the Gish Gallop, right? I mean, you just put a big pile of stuff in and say, oh, this is evidence. And then somebody else has to go through and with a fine tooth comb and keep sorting. You get through the first foot of crap and you say, there's nothing here. And I'm not going to keep digging through this pile of garbage. There's nothing here. And other people are like, yeah, but look at all this evidence. And what it reminded me of, again, the way I looked at it as like this weird double standard, when the Planned Parenthood videos came out and those were debunked, everybody was like, 11 investigations, no wrongdoing found. How do people keep believing this? And yet criminal accusations against Clinton, all these investigations, no wrongdoing found, but she must be guilty, or why would you have all these investigations?
It's the there's smoke, there's fire fallacy.
When I was in graduate school, I did a project where I used data mining to analyze trends in Google News. And so I spent some time talking to a journalism professor. And one of the big things that we talked about that I found really interesting was this theory that basically the media doesn't change how people think about a particular story in general. What the media does have the power to do is choose which issues people pay attention to. And so however people feel about those issues, the ones that are highlighted, and there's a lot of theory about how political campaigns are run to focus on advantageous issues to the one candidate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I took journalism, and of course, whenever it's like an economic thing, you've got a certain amount of time and you can devote it to a certain amount of news. And so somebody has to make a decision about what you're going to report and what's going to be on hold or what's never going to be reported. I mean, you have to, there's just a reality, you have to make that decision. Now, whether you make that decision in a way to try to be partisan in some way or to try to manipulate public opinion, or whether you're just simply saying what would garner the most popular interest, you know, depends on your editors. Depends on the producers and people making those decisions. But yeah, you could abuse it if you want to, but the fact that the media does it isn't a problem. It's just a necessity.
All right. So what can we say, you know, positive, constructive about where to go, what to do now?
Huh.
Well, we almost got hit by an asteroid recently, so that was. You know.
I actually have some
that
thoughts
is exactly
on that.
not the right attitude.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
I know you don't feel that way.
I mean, I work in project management, and so my whole life is basically spent being given a set of goals and being told these are the goals and you have to hit them. And when you start, you have a plan, and that plan never ever goes like it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
You start to head out and things hit and you get this emergency, and then somebody comes up with something that was forgotten, and there's just that's all you do is keep heading toward those goals for those deadlines and those budgets, and you want to hit those goals no matter what gets thrown at you. And so for me, when I look at the positive side of this, the positive things are that, you know, I'm looking at it, it's like I still have the same goals I had. I still personally believe in separation of church and state. I still personally believe in, you know, promoting equity, which to me is inherently tied to separation of church and state. All the goals I had don't go away just because Trump got elected and the GOP owns the government now.
Yeah,
And
honestly,
so,
this is not a substantially different country right now than it might have been if Trump had narrowly lost instead of narrowly won. Well, it is substantially different in terms of who's pulling the levers. But the people who make it up, like if Hillary Clinton had narrowly won, this large number of angry, sometimes violent Trump supporters would still exist all over the place.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they'd still be, and they would probably be out about it in the way they are now. You know, it's it would just be coming from a place of resentment and not, you know, this sort of, you know, gloating. Yeah, just you know, abuse. I think what will be interesting to watch now over the next few years, at least between now and the midterms, will be the degree of disillusionment coming from his supporters when he does not change their lives in the way that they anticipated. And when he's already, you know, and of course every politician does this, but remember, you know, we all have, you know, it seems like, you know, people just, you know, how we compartmentalize our minds. And so, you know, the fact that whatever's gone on in the past with presidents getting elected and then immediately backtracking on campaign promises, to whatever degree, you know, the people who have this sort of messianic attitude about, you know, Trump, you know, being the guy to shake everything up. Well, we've already seen, like, you know, his appeal was as the outsider candidate, but his entire cabinet is like the most establishment conservatives you could possibly get your hands on. Newt Gingrich, you know, that whole bunch. And when he doesn't change the things, I mean, he's already waffling on, well, okay, with the Obamacare, I'm not necessarily gonna repeat. I mean, we'll keep the, you know, pre-existing conditions thing, and we're gonna not necessarily make you kick your kids off your plan, and maybe we'll work. He's already kind of doing this waffling stuff, and to an electorate who expected, you know, this sort of happy march all the way back to, you know, the days of Mad Men and those, you know, that political, it's just going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be interesting to watch this sort of reaction that his followers are going to just, how their attitudes are shaped when he doesn't really turn out to be the guy.
Yeah, of course, that's not to say that he's not in a position to do a lot of damage.
That's true too. That's true too.
Right, but he's a loose cannon and he's unpredictable, and that's the thing. That can either be an advantage or a disadvantage. Unpredictability is used by people in group dynamics often to gain control. So if I am unpredictable, but all of the other people around me are predictable, it's much more easy for me to control them because they don't know what I'm ever going to do and how I'm going to react to things, but I always know how they're going to react. So I've got an advantage by being unpredictable.
That's his entire campaign in a nutshell.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's an effective, I would almost said good. It's not a good method. It's an abusive method of control, but it's an effective method of control. And
how do we deal with it?
To me,
I don't mean just us 5 people. I mean,
no, I know.
On
and
our side of the
the
political
thing
spectrum.
to do when you have somebody that's like that, there's not much you can't predict them, and so you end up in a situation where you kind of have to wait and see what they do. And so I think what Martin was describing a little bit ago about how he's already waffling. Like somebody asked him, the other thing that came up was somebody was like, when are you going to start prosecuting Clinton? And they said he was kind of dismissive about that. He said he was going to sue these women. Is he going to sue those women? Is he going to start court battles right after he gets in office? Is he going to do this stuff he said he would do? And right now, when people are saying, oh my God, he's going to do all these things, in my head, I'm thinking, we got a guy here, we don't know what the hell he's going to do.
Yeah.
We don't know what he is going to do or not do. And it might, like what Martin was saying, if he goes forward and says, you know what, pre-existing conditions are not a bad idea. Keeping people insured on their parents' insurance might be an easy way to handle certain things. If I can, like with project manager in me says, if I can get some of my goals, I'm going to get them. And if other goals I have to be more creative about how I get to them, then I'll try to be more creative about how I get to them. My goals are not changing, but I have to be flexible enough to handle whatever gets thrown at me in order to say, how do I keep going for my goals, even if I have to work with this weird risk factor unknown, which is what I do at my job.
That is what politicians do all the time who care about getting reelected. Although part of Trump's unpredictability is, will he care more about getting reelected? Well, I mean, or those still might be the same things that get him reelected.
What does Trump want? What will Trump do? I don't know, and I don't think anybody else knows.
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly he's not the first or ever the only presidential candidate during the campaign process to just say whatever he felt he had to say to get those votes in. But I think that we're just going to see this perhaps as it's going to, it will dawn on people just to the degree how much more brazen Trump was about that. I mean, this is probably a guy who would, like that unpredictability, that loose cannon factor. He literally would have said anything if he could secure your vote, and then once he got it, he was good. And in terms of keeping promises, I think that, for example, you could look at Obama or even Bush, any president that you can name they make campaign promises, and I think in most cases, once they get in office, if they break the campaign promise, it's not necessarily because
they lied.
Yeah, or it became a matter of you get in office, and then you immediately have this whole political apparatus that you have to deal with, and there is you got to kind of play the game a bit, and you have to make the compromises, and you can't just come in and make. But I think in Trump's case, what we're probably seeing is a guy who just. Literally just the I don't give a shit factor, right? Promises to him were nothing but, whatever campaign promises he made were nothing but a thing that he said to secure votes. And he probably has no real political ethos.
Aspirations.
Yeah, that
we've already seen very clearly that you can confront him with his own words or a recording, and he'll just stand right there and say, I didn't say that.
Didn't say it.
Or you don't understand that.
Yeah.
Or you're being very unfair.
Yes,
right. But
unfair.
I mean, what Martin is saying reminds me of a story, like just real quick. I know we're running out of time, but it's like, I had a friend who was getting married, and her fiance was very flirtatious and very close with an ex-girlfriend who worked with him, and it wasn't good. And so one day she said they set the date, and I was so kind of bothered by like this bothered her, and I knew it was a problem, and I just felt like, should they be getting married with this big thing hanging over them that really bothers her this much? So I asked her one day, I was like, do you mind if I have some concerns and I wanted to talk to you, but I don't know if it's my place. And she said, no, that's fine, go ahead. So I said, I just want you to be sure about what you're doing because you have all these concerns, and I want you to know that when you marry somebody, the next day you still got the same person that you married. It's just you got a new ring and you got a piece of paper from a courthouse. But other than that, nothing changes. And she was like, no, I understand that. 3 months after the wedding, she calls me up and she's upset because this woman is flirting with her husband at work and she's an ex-girlfriend, and it's the same story. And I said, this is how she's always been. This is how it's always been. And she said, yeah, but he's married now. Right? Okay.
I know.
And so
but he's president
Martin
now.
is describing, right? But what Martin is describing is he was duplicitous all the way through the campaigns, all the way through the primaries, through the election run, and now he's president, and he's immediately starting out kind of weirdly duplicitous. And that should surprise no one, because that's who he's been all throughout. Being the president isn't changing who the guy is. And when you're dealing with somebody like that, I mean, in my mind, I'm kind of like, I don't know how the conservatives are going to react when he starts doing what he wants and saying, Obamacare may have some good points to it. Or when he starts doing that, if I'm looking at this and I'm saying my goal is to make sure everybody has health care, and if I can see Trump saying one or two things that I'm thinking those are big point issues that we do need to keep and that are really useful, you know what, I'll take it. It doesn't mean I like Trump or that I support all the crap he did, but I'm not going to piss on my own goals just to be, anti-Trump. And so with, if Trump ends up not doing what he said he was going to do, I guess said on certain days, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I end up getting things that I want out of that, I'm going to be like, I'm so glad that it wasn't the, total Armageddon that I was expecting.
Right.
And
but it's still going to be some issues and not others. I mean,
right. But I just have to wait and see where he waffles and where he doesn't.
It's also not, it's not just Trump, right? It's Trump and a Supreme Court stocked with right-wingers and Congress stocked with right-wingers. So
they're going
to me, the most interesting thing,
a conservative justice with a conservative justice. I mean, Scalia was conservative.
But how many more seats are going to open up in the next 4 years?
I don't know.
You really
think
think Ginsburg is going to be hanging out for 4 more years?
I don't know.
I hope so.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I hope she does.
That's really hard to believe.
I mean, I would hope that you would just kind of, look at the way the wind's blowing and be like, okay, well, I'll stick it out for a little while.
Too, but I'm very concerned.
I am.
I mean, look at Scalia. Wait. Scalia was how much younger and he died, right? I mean, I'm not necessarily going to look at this and say she is definitely out in the next 4 years. Things happen you don't expect. I don't know what's going to occur.
Sure. The most interesting thing to me about Trump's volatility, though, is that, we might be looking at 4 years of him fighting with the rest of the party that elected him.
He might. He's already in fights with half of them. I mean, we know nice. Cruz and Ryan got on board, but totally begrudgingly.
Yeah. What are the odds? Does Clinton? I mean, I'm sorry. Does Obama have an opportunity between now and inauguration? Is there a chance to? What's the Senate doing between now? I mean, is there a chance for him to just appoint Merrick Garland?
No.
No, there's not.
He technically could.
You posted the petition, Jeff.
Yeah, they'll never put it through.
Yeah.
What, Russell?
You posted a petition that said.
I did, and yet the facts are, and I don't think there's a problem with posting a petition to collect evidence of people wanting a certain thing, even if there is an apparently insurmountable obstacle to getting it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think it's important for people to know how others feel. But in fact, the Republicans have their own loophole that they've been exploiting to keep Congress technically in session to enough of a degree to prevent Obama from appointing Garland or anyone.
Okay.
And that is what has been going on. And the Republicans have said explicitly they're doing this in order to block him from being able to get a recess appointment. So they're aware.
That's an unprecedented thing ever. That's just So there's a whole it's so the degree to which
the Republicans have been teaching the Democrats how to do obstructionism, for 8 years.
But I don't have that much confidence that Democrats learned that lesson, because they have a self-image as being the nice and reasonable ones, and that may get in the way of playing hardball, basically.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Yeah, nice and reasonable just doesn't work against an unreasonable.
Sometimes reasonable is, no.
Right.
Sometimes that's the reasonable position.
Yeah.
No, and sometimes it's compromise.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's I can't stop
demands
this, but what can I do to mitigate it? I mean, that's what my job is about too. Sometimes I can't stop a problem, but I can mitigate the pain that it causes.
Right.
But and that's a level of pragmatism that I think a lot of the electorate, especially I guess on the right side of the spectrum, they've decided that that's treason, and you can't compromise, and
I'm a traitor.
Pragmatism is horrible, and so that's why we get this. They double down on everything.
If I can get anything I want out of this administration, I'm gonna get it. That's how I look at it. I will get everything I can.
And in the meanwhile, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, we were talking about, before a little bit about Trump's volatility and not really knowing which way he's going to go. And I just wanted to comment that it reminds me of, some people know I do martial arts, and it's like if I am sparring the best martial artist in the school, I'm not really afraid of getting hurt in that, even though this person's really good, and they could like fracture my skull with a kick or something like that. I'm not afraid of getting hurt sparring the best or even the second best person in the school, because I know what they're going to do. I know what they're capable of, and they have control. When I'm sparring somebody, I'm more afraid of sparring the relatively unskilled person who's very unpredictable, because I mean, it's one of those situations where I've been in the gym and I was teaching a self-defense move that wasn't even sparring, and the guy lost his mind and tried to hit me in the head.
Wow.
Punch me in the face.
But see, that's what you were describing was fear, right? You said fear is what makes you off balance. And the thing is, when that guy comes in and you don't know what he's gonna do, it makes you a little bit off balance, and you get tentative because you're like, I'm scared this guy doesn't know how to control himself. And that's what I'm saying is it allows him control, and it makes us be off balance. But you can't really know what's gonna happen till he starts throwing punches.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing is it's like you just got to sit there and say, I don't know what he's going to do, but let's see what he does. And then once he throws that punch, let me see if I can find a counter to get advantage so that I can get what I want.
Right. And so, initially going in, you have to be, very defensive about how you approach this, because you don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
So it's like, you can't go in and go for what you want, because they're so unpredictable.
But the worst thing you can do is panic.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because you have to maintain control, because you've never needed it more than when you're dealing with somebody that's not in control or that is unpredictable. You need to be very measured.
Yes, and I think that's kind of an important lesson for this political season, in that, for the liberal side, we have some very skilled politicians, and we need to keep in mind that our people are really good at this. They're good at government. They believe in government.
Right.
And they can pull the levers of power in ways that some of these unskilled people can't. And I think probably people like Pelosi have seen a lot of the tricks by now, and I don't know. There's still a huge potential for a lot of people to get hurt, but
well, we are stuck with that. But you're right. We're the nicer people. We're the smarter people. Or at least better educated. And
although I do want
that going for us. However, but what we need to do for next time, in addition to getting through this, we need to be getting the less educated people on our side.
Yes, I agree.
And Trump's going to help a lot by just being a disaster.
Yeah.
But then,
Right.
on top
Maybe
of
he
that,
can make the country declare bankruptcy.
Yeah, but let's not overplay the education angle on it also, because this is a reality we have to face. Most college educated whites went for Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is that element of it. We can't ignore that. We can't just say, well, they just voted for him because they're dumb. That most Trump supporters have, they're in the 50 grand and up a year income bracket, and I think this does boil down to this is a referendum on the racial climate in America. I think that's a thing that we can't underplay. And so my final thoughts for all this are what we've been talking now for several minutes about. Well, what might Trump actually do, and in what ways might he be unpredictable, even to his own party, and what concessions might we be able to get from him, and what have you. But all of that that's all academic. What the reality that we're living in now is that we have a world where kids in as young as elementary school, are confronting a situation where their best friends at the lunch table today are hurling racial slurs at them and telling them to get out of the country. And they're scared and they're confused and they don't get this new reality that's been thrust upon them. And to me, that's the unforgivable crime of this election cycle and this administration. And this is a thing. Whatever Trump does, whether it lasts 2 years or 4 or 8 or however long, we have now got we have been rolled back in so many ways in terms of the social climate and this is going to take decades to repair. And to me, this is the thing that makes me angriest about this campaign. I don't really give a shit about. Yes, we'll deal with whatever Trump wants to throw at us politically. There's the ACLU to deal with that. There's still Democrats in Congress who vowed to fight. Fine, those will be political battles that come as they come. But we're living now in socially, this is very much a dystopian nightmare for a lot of people. I have married gay friends with families who are worried about, within a day, right? They went from having happy, normal lives like all the rest of us to, oh shit, like their very existence they fear for. That cannot be allowed to stand in this country. And that to me matters more than any of whatever kind of political ping pong is going to be played.
When you have people of color making a point of telling everybody get a passport because you might have to prove citizenship. Yeah, or you might have to flee the country.
The result of this election is I have never felt closer to people who are not like me. Mm-hmm. Just going to the grocery store. It's like mm-hmm. I just want to go around and hug people who I know are going to be facing hell for the next 4 years.
I walked outside my office on Wednesday, and you generally don't talk politics on at work unless it's to make a few sort of bipartisan wisecracks or something like that. But I went outside and there was a little cluster of people talking to each other and just looking miserable. And one of the people who's a project manager that I have known for like a year and a half, and had no idea she was a lesbian and was married, and she's also got an accent because she's from out of the country. And I learned a whole lot of things about her, but I also learned how caring and supportive the people I work with are, and that was heartening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So. All right. Are we gonna wrap this up at some point?
Yeah, I was gonna say
we're
that.
Past our hour.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all you guys coming together because some of us don't get to see or talk to each other as regularly as others.
Good to talk to all of you guys again.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you again,
good to hear from you, Martin.
Well, thanks for setting this up, Russell. I really appreciate it.
So, sure.
Thank you.
Indeed.
I hope people
listening, everybody.
I hope people listening didn't expect us to make them feel better. But,
or solve everything.
right.
Well, we just hope that we put some ideas and thoughts on the table and made you realize that yeah, this is a discussion that will now be ongoing, and that we'll try to be as on it as we can.
Yeah.
And one last thing, everybody, Trump did not get elected by the majority of Americans. Trump got elected by less than 1/4 of Americans, which is too many, but it's not as bad as it appears.
But it's
just
still
bad.
pretty bad.
Same way
That's
Rick
right.
Perry stayed in office. Same way
you
Rick
know.
Perry stayed in office. He never polled a majority of the population.
Feel
And
concerned,
never-
but feel the right amount of concern. Sorry.
Well, I don't
Okay.
want to say never. I guess he probably did in the early days. I don't know.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hitting stop. Bye.
Bye-bye.